PhD. She has over 30 years in health education, naturopathic medicine, and is an international speaker and author. Chosen as the Professional of the Year in Naturopathic Medicine by Cambridge Who's Who in 2009 and 2010. Dr. Julie has not just an ND and a PhD, but she also has an MBA, an MSPH, and a BBA. She is a master herbalist, a massology. I had to look that up, of course. It's a type of massage therapy, which I knew that she did and that she had expertise in that. But myomassology is a kind of massage therapy that utilizes different modalities such as aromatherapy and other means to do the work that is necessary. Dr. Julie is nationally certified. She had a practice in Detroit, Michigan for a number of years. Her presentations have been deemed practical and comprehensive, focusing on the whole person, body, mind, and spirit or soul. Dr. Julie is an energetic speaker, and we can testify to that. We were at UG Pines and we couldn't keep up with her. I mean, she is one energetic and energized woman. And she does all kinds of tours around the campus and online presentations while she's walking, and just amazing. She engages her learners or her audience in interactive presentations. She has written many books, manuals, and workbooks on various health topics. She has given boot camps, 1 to 2 minute health shots, and many seminars. She has been an instructor and professor at several colleges and universities for over 13 years. Her foundational training has come from Heartland College and mainly Doctors Agatha and Calvin Thrash from UG Pines Institute. The Thrashes have been counselors and mentors in areas of health and healing to Dr. Julie. They were like parents guiding her in this work for God. Thank you for being with us this evening, Dr. Julie. We are excited to listen to your presentation and cannot wait for this topic on pain and inflammation to be just unpacked by you. Pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thank you for those who have taken the time to be with us in the audience this evening. And for those who are watching online from around the country and maybe even internationally, we ask a blessing upon them as well. May this topic of pain and inflammation, how to identify what the issues are, and how to resolve them so that they do not make our bodies diseased and miserable, and so that we can be of service to you and we can care for this temple of yours the way you would have us. We thank you for our presenter this evening. May the information she presents just be a blessing to all of us, is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Dr. Julie, the floor is yours.
All right. I don't know if you can see my screen. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about inflammation, how it is a cure for everything. A cure for everything. You may think that inflammation is not a good thing and that inflammation may be a problem. And a lot of times it is for a lot of people. However, we know that inflammation is both good and bad. So I'm going to be sharing with you how important it is understanding that inflammation can be a cure as well. And so we're going to understand all of that tonight. I am definitely a gospel medical missionary evangelist. That's one thing that Dr. Agatha said. And I'm excited to be able to present this information to you because a lot of people do have pain. A lot of people have pain in their joints. They have pain in their bodies. And to really realize what is going on in their system. So, with that, I don't know, but I'm hearing an echo. Okay. So with that, understanding what inflammation truly is going to be a key factor in understanding how this actually takes care of or is very important in the way that we treat or in the way that we can get rid of the pain. Researchers have linked inflammation to almost every critical disease of aging. And not only that, but different things such as cancer and diabetes and heart disease. All of these things we're finding through research that inflammation is a key factor in all of these. So how do we reduce it now and can clear the path for a happier, healthier, and longer life? That's what we need to be doing in order to understand what this is, how it works in our body. We'll be able to reduce that inflammation. So let's talk a little bit about low-grade inflammation and what that actually means. So when you have low-grade inflammation, it's like a mild fever or a creaky joint. I'm sure there's people that have had that take place, right? You might have gotten a fever, whatever. And so this is a low grade. This is part of your body working to help fight off whatever that is. So whether it be in aging and disease, the biggest things that we need to be looking at is cancer, heart disease, dementia, diabetes. Now, these are the things that we should be more in tune with because these things actually started out with some form of inflammation. And so later on, I'll be talking about different things that we can do to not have so much inflammation, especially when it comes to chronic inflammation. And when we have chronic inflammation, that's when we have cancer, heart disease, dementia, and diabetes. And it's interesting here that I mentioned dementia, which is a brain issue, right? Well, with that, we know that when we have a brain issue, that's exactly what's going on. There's inflammation in our brain, meaning that these cells are not able to be cleared out. And those brain cells, when they die, that creates problems. Now, my big thing is this. I believe that inflammation is the key to most all diseases, because when you look at inflammation, that's the key factor when it comes to the link of cancer and obesity. Obesity starts out with inflammation from different things that we do in our environment or foods and different things, and we'll be talking more about that. With that link between cancer and obesity, when a person is overweight or obese, what takes place is that the fat cells are inflamed. And when this inflammation is brought about in the body, it's starving off the areas to be fed oxygen. So each one of our organs need oxygen. And how does it get it? Through blood flow. Blood flow gives you oxygen. It also helps to give you nutrients. And each organ needs all of these things. So if they're not getting fed the nutrients, and if they're not getting the oxygen, then they will die. So that's why inflammation and exercise and your blood flow are so important. So that's one of the main things that we have to understand when it comes to inflammation and some of these problems with diabetes and dementia and heart disease. The other thing is all of these health issues and more have one common trigger, and that means that there's a low grade of inflammation. There has been research done in Boston that reported on a clinical trial with 10,000 patients in 39 different countries. And they tested for anti-inflammatory drug that would lower the rates of heart disease. And they discovered that it could actually do that. And they also found the same drug that reduced lung cancer mortality as well, up to 77%. And it helped with gout as well as arthritis. But what I'm going to share with you tonight is not drugs, but some things that we can do that's natural, and to be able to help us to understand if we do these things, it can help get rid of some of that inflammation that we have. So what kind of role does inflammation play? Well, it's in everyone's health. Every one of us is going to have inflammation from time to time. And when inflammation levels increase, so does your risk for disease. So what do I mean by that? There's chronic inflammation and there's also acute inflammation. So with those two types of inflammation, we need to understand what those are and what does that mean and what role does that play. So it's tricky to understand that completely, however, when you get a disease. And the reason why is because inflammation levels naturally increase as your body fights the condition. And so it's good and it's bad. So let's understand how that works. So when we're looking at inflammation in our body, if we take flu, for example, when you get the flu, what happens to your body? Your body temperature rises, right? So what's taking place there is that your body is like in a fighting mode, and it's trying to fight that virus. And this is a form of inflammation, because if you go to the doctor and they do a blood test, we notice that your white blood cells, and there's certain areas like neutrophils and some other ones that we look at. And with that, we have an idea what type of problem is going on with you from the amount of white blood cells in any one of those categories, to have an idea if you got the flu or virus or whatever it might be. And so with that, we understand that what the body is doing is it's increasing the white blood cells. So it has to do with our immune system. And so our immune system is like a military. So if you think of the military, what do we have in the military? We have the Army, we have the Marines, we have the Navy, so we have different divisions in our military department, right? And so they're taking care of things in the air, things of the sea, things on the land. And so same thing with our body. When you talk about your immune system, it's not in one organ, it's all over throughout our system. And that's like our military. They're there to fight off and to be able to get in and go where they need to go. And each one of them do something different. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Same thing with the sprained ankle, right? So when you sprain your ankle, what happens? It gets red, it gets inflamed, it swells up, and it gets big, right? And what's happening here is that all of this is part of the healing process. And the body uses that healing, those chemicals and those nutrients to repair the damage, because they're going into that area, they're flooding into that area, bringing in nutrients. They're bringing in different things for the healing process to take place. And while they're coming into that area, it swells up, right? The first thing you do when you get a sprained ankle, because of that swelling and that redness, you put on an ice pack or you soak it in cold ice water, right? So these are both good examples of acute inflammation, meaning that it's for a short period of time and that it means it's temporary. It's a helpful response to an injury or an illness. And once the danger goes away, so does the inflammation, because they got in there, they did their job, and now the healing process took place, the inflammation goes away, and you're healed with your sprained ankle. Or if you have the flu or virus or something, the same type of response goes on. And so it's very important for us to understand that, because when we understand acute and chronic, acute should only last from days to a month. Once it goes over that month, then now it becomes chronic. And when you have chronic inflammation, that is not a good thing. That means you're going down the wrong road and that your body is sending out those signals and it's responding over and over, and it's sending these fighter cells to go in there and take care of the situation. And when that happens, it means it's misfiring. That means when this is taking place, then it becomes chronic like that. We get diseases such as heart disease and diabetes and dementia and all of that. So in order for us to take care of this, we understand that chronic inflammation, on the other hand, is slow. It's a creeping condition that causes by misfiring of that immune system. And it keeps your body in a constant long-term state of high alert. When that happens, it makes your body exhausted because it's doing everything that it can to fight. And so we need to make sure that we're keeping it under control, that we're actually taking care of that chronic to become acute, and then also to get rid of that. So why is chronic low-grade inflammation such a problem? If you look here on the screen, I have over time, inflammation damages healthy cells. That's what happens when we have chronic low-grade inflammation. So when these cells are in distress, what they do is they release these chemicals that alert the immune system. And what are they? They're white blood cells. They come in next, and they flood to the scene. And where they work, what they're doing is they're eating up that bacteria or those viruses or those damaged cells, and they're getting rid of all that debris from that infection or even that injury, like if you had a sprained ankle. And if the damage is too great, then what they do is they call in for backup. And these cells are known as neutrophils. And that's another form of a white blood cell. There's a number of them. So these neutrophils now, what they're considered like is like hand grenades, right? So we're talking military. So they come in and they're like hand grenades of your immune system. What they're doing is that they're blowing up everything that's in sight, whether it's healthy or whether it's not healthy. It doesn't matter. They're just getting rid of everything in that area. So each of these neutrophils, they have a short lifespan. But in a chronic inflammation, what's happening is that they're continuing to be sent in long after that real threat is gone, causing damage to the healthy tissues as well as the ones that are damaged. So when they're coming in, what they're doing is they're getting a response saying, come on in, come on in. So they're sending off different troops, and they're having those troops go in, they're doing their thing. And then another response comes in, and it's doing it all over again. And it's a cycle that keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going. And this is what chronic low-grade inflammation is all about. And that's a problem because it needs to shut down instead of keep doing that. And when they keep doing that, it causes us to have major issues. And what kind of major issues do we have? Well, it can start attacking the lining of your arteries or your intestines. And these cells in your liver now, as well as your brain or the tissue muscles of your joints and muscles. And this inflammation caused cellular damage, and it triggers diseases such as arthritis and depression. So it brings on a host of other health issues. And because of the low grade, it means that it's a slow and secret nature, which makes it very hard to diagnose in the day-to-day life. And you have no idea it's even happening until those conditions actually show symptoms. Do you realize that when we have this, we can have some swelling or inflammation in our joint, and we won't even notice it, even if it's up to 30%. We might feel a little slight inflammation in the joint, but 30% seems to be quite a lot. And so it doesn't seem like much, and you don't see it on the outside, but once you notice it on the outside that it's swelling up or something, now it's more than 30%, especially when it's in a joint area. So how can natural be toxic to our health? Because, I mean, when we think of inflammation, it's a good thing, but it can become a bad thing, as we see here, as it's a chronic issue. When it becomes a chronic issue, it's not a good thing. So things are happening where it's misfiring and it's not doing what it should be doing. So sometimes inflammation can be very complicated, and we need to ask the question, is it a friend or is it a foe? And it depends, right? It's usually a friend. Inflammation is a friend because it's trying to battle. It's trying to fight off or take care of a situation in our body. And so when we look at this, we need to look at four major causes when it comes to this inflammation. First and foremost, outside infection. What do I mean by that? I mean that sometimes it's hard to kill that outside infection, such as Lyme's disease or even hepatitis C. And these things, they linger on in the body for a long period of time. And what happens is that the body responds with inflammation, and it lingers for a long time. And it often becomes a chronic situation or chronic inflammation. And it's not the virus that causes much of the long-term damage that's related to these diseases, but it's that misfiring, that thing that just keeps going on and on in our system. The second thing is genetics. When it comes to genetics, we know that we inherit a genetic propensity towards either some type of a health issue. And with these genes, to these health issues can be either turned on or turned off by the inflammation. And this turning on and turning off is called epigenetics. Epigenetics, meaning that we can turn this gene on or we can turn this gene off. And that usually comes, a big part of it is the role of our lifestyle. So when we look at diabetes and cancer, these are the two main genetic related diseases that's triggered by inflammation. And the gene itself can cause a misfiring of the immune system that causes inflammation, such as rheumatoid arthritis or MS or lupus or a few other type of diseases. So we see that taking place by turning it on and turning it off. The third part, or the third area, would be the environment. So what kind of environment? Pollution, air, water quality, environmental allergies, and a host of other environmental factors can trigger and sustain inflammation. Even the environment of your refrigerator or your pantry can be a problem as well, depending on what types of food you're eating. Because of the environment of being able to have it readily available by going in the evening and seeing to see what you have in your cupboard or whatever to eat. That's an environment. Most environments that we're talking about here, more so than just eating, would be maybe where you work, in the building that you work in. Maybe there's something in the walls or the paint or even the glue to glue the carpet. All of these can be affecting a person to give them inflammation in their body to signal this problem. The fourth thing is lifestyle. Obesity is linked with cancer because of inflammation. And when inflammation takes place, when you're obese, what's taking place there is that when we eat certain foods, the liver says, well, let's just store it in the fat. And so when we have fat internally, the visceral fat, which is inside, where you see it in your gut or your abdomen area, that is a concerning thing, because what's happening there is, as that inflammation and that fat increase into your abdominal area inside, it will actually starve off the blood flow and mostly your oxygen to your organs. When this happens, this is a big, huge issue to starting other health issues and being at risk for other things such as cancer, diabetes, dementia, and these type of things. And also when it comes to our lifestyle, if we have an unregulated stress, meaning we don't know how to deal with stress. I know that Dr. Agatha would always say, if you're stressed, what you need to do is exercise neutralizes stress. This is so key to understand. Exercise plays a huge role when it comes to stress. So think of this: exercise neutralizes stress. I'm going to say it one more time. And if I was there with you live, I would say it with me. So go ahead. Exercise neutralizes stress. So with that, we need to know how to manage that stress. If we use tobacco or if we drink alcohol, these things too cause and play a role with inflammation in our body. If we have lack of physical activity, if we're not getting enough movement through the day, if we're not exercising our joints, our muscles, it's very vital, because how many muscles did God create us with? We have like 840 muscles if you count every single muscle in your body. So if you have that many muscles, then that means that God created us to move, and we need to get active. We need to be physically active. And they say that 30 to 45 minutes a day we should be walking. So if we're going to do that, that means that you should take a digestive walk. If you eat 2 meals a day and you take a 15-minute digestive walk, what will that do for you? That'll get you 30 minutes of exercise. And so any type of activity is going to be better than no activity. Even if you just take that 15 minutes and it's a leisure walk, that's going to be better than no walk at all, because that's part of movement. And when we do that, it helps with our digestion. When we take that walk after we eat, and not only that, but if we get our heart rate up and we get a little more active after that, what that's going to do is it's going to help with the flow of our blood. So we want to have good blood flow as well. Now, the biggest thing is sleep. So if we're getting lousy sleep, that's not going to be a good thing either. They say that, about 2/3 of the people, it's a huge amount of people that are deprived of sleep. It's because we work so much, or we're on our tablets, or we're on our phones, or something like that, where we're not getting the sleep because we stay alert in our mind with the light from our computer or our tablets or our phone, and that causes problems. So we want to make sure that we get sleep. And to me, that would be the number one thing to change in our lifestyle. If there's only one thing out of all these things, I would say sleep would be the number one thing to focus on. And of course, our diet. Is it a poor diet? Are you eating a whole food, plant-based diet? That's the direction you want to go to, because those are the foods that are going to give you the most relief. And all of these things are linked to chronic inflammation. That's why it's important for us to understand that if we have any one of those areas in our lifestyle, or any one of those 4 that I've talked about, those 4 categories, these are very important. Now, the question is, does getting older increase inflammation? Yes, it does. Unfortunately, it does. The older we are, the more exposure we have had to stuff like environmental toxins, stress, alcohol, bad food choices, chronic diseases, plus aging makes it more difficult for our bodies to properly manage our immune system. So to extract nutrients from food and to shed those extra pounds as we get older. But let me tell you, there is hope. I've had people in their 70s and 60s and probably even older than that have lost weight. So even though you get older, a lot of times people think, oh, when you get to this age, this is going to happen. And when you get to this age, this type of disease, you're going to be, on a higher rate of getting. But I can tell you that if you follow these things, especially your lifestyle, and you follow these things, you're not going to be having these type of things at those certain ages. You will notice that even as you get older, that you can still be in good health. And when we follow these simple principles that God has given us, that is truly the key. They're so simple that we as humans think that, oh, it's got to be complicated. It's got to be some kind of complication or, something that's going to be hard or whatever. But no, it's really the simplicity. The more simple that you can get is probably going to be the best in the way that we eat our diet. If it's a simple diet, eating whole foods, plant-based diet, these things will make a huge difference in the way that we live. I know of a man that's like 98 and he's doing really well. He can drive his car. He still gives Bible studies. He's a head elder of a church, and he was a medical doctor. He retired at the age of 75, but he's still living a very productive life. He's doing all kinds of things. Nothing has slowed him down. And so I don't know of any diseases that he has. He just wears some hearing aids. That's all I know. And he wears glasses, and that's about it. But other than that, he is in really good health for being almost 100, And so these are the things, when we do and follow certain simple principles, we can see results on how God has given us wisdom and guidance in those things. So what makes chronic inflammation happen? Well, it's a cascading effect of reaction in the body. So let's break it down here. Number one, something triggers your immune system. It could be a chronic disease. It could be an autoimmune disorder. It could be that you gained weight. It could be a psychological stressor. It could be poor nutrition. It can be an exposure of chemicals or even allergens. And something puts your body in a state of stress, and it keeps it there for a longer period of time. The second thing is our immune system responds. So what's taking place now, once this takes place, that first thing that takes place, the second thing that takes place is that our immune system responds to this. And what happens here is that the body goes into attack mode. And that's part of the inflammatory response that takes place with inflammation, which includes blood vessels. They expand and it increases that blood flow to that problem area. And this blood now is the primary delivery system for all of these substances. And then the third thing that starts happening is it responds and it responds and it responds and it responds and it responds. It gets into a cycle where it's putting out those fighter cells. It's putting out those neutrophils. And it's an endless cycle of pro-inflammatory foods. If we keep eating these foods, it makes that respond that even more to this. And then it creates stress. And if we have bad sleep, it just keeps responding to all of these things because we haven't corrected any of these things. And therefore, it keeps this process in a constant motion because we never give the body a break. So my suggestion here is, if this is going on and this cycle is going on, maybe you might want to drink a bunch of water, do a water fast, or do something where you're replenishing, giving your body a break. And that's why I say sleep is one of those things, because our body needs rest in order for it to heal as well. But we also need to exercise as well. Now, E.G. White, one of my favorite authors, in a number of her books, she said this very profound statement. She says, perfect health is having perfect circulation. So if you want to have perfect health, that means that you need to have perfect circulation. So what is circulation? What does that mean? What does that mean when we have circulation? Perfect circulation at that. That means we have good blood flow, that our blood flow is from our head to our toes and everywhere in between and in our hands. If we don't have good, perfect circulation, then that means that our body is deficient in oxygen. Our body is becomes deficient in nutrients. And when that happens, we start having stagnant blood. We have organs that are not being fed. And we're also starting to see that our health is going downhill. So what are some things that we can do? Well, God gave us instruction to follow, and they're very simple, and they're all taken from Genesis. I call it, and most people know it as New Start. The first thing is nutrition, having a proper diet, eating a whole food, plant-based diet, rainbows, right? Think of the colors of a rainbow, getting those foods in that color and each of those colors, because each of those colors signify different types of minerals and vitamins for our body. Exercise, getting at least 30 to 45 minutes a day. And I've already shared with you that if you do 2 meals a day and do 2 15-minute digestive walks, that gives you what? 15 and 15 gives you 30 minutes right there. So you're already getting your exercise for the day. But if you do an extra 45 or another 15 minutes, hey, and do it quickly instead of leisurely, that's going to give you that much more energy. Did you know that with exercise, research has shown that even 10 minutes of exercise can give you a full hour of happiness, getting those endorphins up there. And that'll be an overall good thing, right? W is for water. Are we drinking enough water? You will want to take your body weight times it by 0.55, and that's how much water you need for the day. So if you weigh 150 pounds, that means you need 82.5 fluid ounces of water. And if you talk for an hour, you need another glass of water for every hour that you talk. If you are working outside and you're perspiring or sweating, you're going to need to drink more water. If you are exercising, you're going to need to drink at least 1 to 3 bottles of water. Not bottles, but 1 or 3 cups of water, because the longer that you're doing it, the more that you're sweating, the more that you need to replenish that water. Sunshine. We know that sunshine gives us vitamin D's, but did you know that sunshine also kills germs? Did you know that sunshine makes you happy? I don't know if it makes you happy, but you just get happy because sunshine, when you're out in the sun, you just feel good. It's just a good thing, right? And actually, sunshine is linked to a lot of things, because vitamin D is linked to a lot of different diseases and health issues, viruses, bacteria, whatever. If we are making sure that we're getting those levels of vitamin D in our body through sunshine, that's the best format. The next would be supplementation if we're not getting enough sunshine. And the best hours to get that sunshine is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if it's too hot in some of that period of time, then you don't want to expose yourself for too long of a period each time that you go out there. You can go out there at different times and get a few minutes here and there. The darker your skin, the more sunshine you need. That means that the darker the skin and you're not getting enough sunshine, that means that you'll be deficient in vitamin D, which will have a problem of a host of other type of diseases. Temperance is one of those things where you want to stay away from things that are harmful, but you don't want to do or overdo those things that are good. So having that balance in our life, not overworking, but making sure that we have a good balance in our lifestyle, meaning that we're spending time with our family, we're engaged with others, right? We're not overworking and being stressed there or doing this or that, and it's not having a good balance, whether it's mentally, spiritually, socially, financially, all areas that affect our life. We need to have a balance in that. Air, breathing, deep breathing, getting sure that you're getting that oxygen, because it's vital for every cell and organ in our body. It needs oxygen. And so when we're breathing, and most people are shallow breathers. They're, breathing like that instead of we want to make sure that we're getting it into our lungs, that we're making sure that the expansion of our ribs are going in and out in our stomach We can see it getting big and small as we breathe. This is what we need to be doing, is making sure that the air is getting inside of our lungs, getting inside of our body. And it's very key. Rest is the next one, making sure that we're getting that sleep of 7 to 9 hours every night. But we want to get into bed about 9:30, because that peaks everything for us. So then that way the cortisol, the melatonin and the serotonin and all of that, the cortisol, all of those things, because when we get to bed at that time and we're in that REM state and all of that, these chemicals in our body are very key when it comes to weight gain, sleep, feeling good in the morning, rested and stuff like that. So if we want to make sure that we're getting good rest, then you should try to go to bed around 9:30, because that would be the best time for the peak of feeling good. And of course, trust in divine power. God is the key to everything. God is the one that we need to go to whenever we have a problem with anything. So if you can't sleep at night, instead of counting the sheep, you need to talk to the master, talk to the shepherd, which is Jesus. And when we talk to him, we need to trust in him. And another thing that we can do is get our Bibles, look for those promises to put us at ease, to know that God loves us so much that he will help us with whatever problem that we have. He said that he would be our one that would supply us with everything that we possibly need in life. He is the one that will comfort us. He is the one that will restore us. He is the one that heals us. So we need to go to him, because he's the one that we need to put our trust in. So when it comes to foods, when it comes to pro-inflammatory foods, this means that the foods that create inflammation would be foods that are high in sugar, that are unhealthy fats. So when we look at that, we need to think of like deli meats, fried foods, because they're the top of the list. And most of these foods are low in fiber. We need fiber. We need to make sure that we're getting our fiber. Another thing is our gut, our microbiome, our gut, that plays a huge role as well. And when we look at the gut and the microbiome there, that it's made up of trillion of bacteria. And that influences our physiological processes throughout the body. We're born with a balance between the good and the bad bacteria in the gut. It's kind of like good and evil, right? And that they have a certain balance and a play that takes place in the gut. And when that's thrown off, it's known as dysbiosis, and it can lead to a number of different troubles inside of our system, like our food, the way it's digested, having digestive problems, having a gut problem. And stress can create a gut problem as well. When we have problems going on in our mind, that will affect our gut, and our stomach can also affect our mind. They play a very close role with one another. When we have a dysregulated microbiome in our gut, it's also associated with metabolic diseases and pulmonary diseases and nervous system conditions. We look at Alzheimer's, depression. Those are associated, and these associations grow as we learn more. Alzheimer's, dementia, because of our brain. Those are brain health issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, and stuff like that. As well as we see that the stomach too, if we have stress or whatever, the stomach relates to that stress, and it can cause mental issues as well, like depression. So when the bad bacteria in the digestive tract become too numerous, they can damage the lining of the digestive tract. And the intestinal barrier that separates the microorganisms from the rest of the body can become permeable, which would actually cause like leaky gut would be part of that, allowing those particles to escape into the body circulation. Because once they escape and they go through, you start having pain and all of that discomfort. The immune system recognizes these particles as foreign invaders and they attack. So the gut keeps leaking and the immune system keeps attacking, and then boom, you have a chronic inflammation. So high fiber foods like whole grains, fruits, vegetables, these are the things that we need to start eating more of, because this will help to restore your gut balance. And if we're not eating those things that are prebiotics to feed the probiotics and the postbiotics, I think all of that is as part of the marketing thing that they're coming up with. And this can create a host of things too. So think of high fiber. And how do we get that high fiber? It's whole grains, fruits, and vegetables. Those are the things that you want to have as a key player when it comes to our diet. So how do we know if we have a chronic inflammation? That's a good question. And it is not if you have it or not. And at a certain age, we all have some degree of inflammation in our bodies. And the key to keep it at a flicker or ember is not to let it erupt into a forest fire. We don't want it to get out of control, because every now and then you're going to have a little stress. Every now and then you're going to have certain things that take place. So with that, there's going to be some inflammation. You might catch a cold. Well, you're going to have inflammation, right? So we want to make sure that we don't get chronic inflammation, right? If you smoke, if you drink a lot, if you carry a lot of extra weight around your belly, and you don't exercise, you eat poorly, or your diet consists of a lot of fat and sugar, that's not a good thing either. Eating too much meat, constantly feeling agitated by stress. If your chances of having some level of chronic elevated inflammation are high if you fall in any of these categories. If you're lean and healthy and you have a good balance in your lifestyle, you have less inflammation. And so that's what you want to do, is you want to stay lean, you want to be healthy, and you want to have that balance of a lifestyle. So then that way the inflammation is at bay. So overweight and inflammation, yes. Fat in the belly is a highly inflammatory tissue. Your belly fat is actively creating and releasing inflammatory compounds. And these things are interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. And this is from lifestyle factors, such as not sleeping well can cause weight gain. Fat cells in the body are like damsels in distress, and they're bloated with triglycerides, which are substances that actually fuel everything. And it results in fragile and burst, and they die, and this triggers inflammation to the immune system, and they send out some more white blood cells to clean up that spill of fuel. And this process goes over because of that cycle that we get stuck into. So is there a connection between stress and inflammation? Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. So chronic stress causes an increase in hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and that directly triggers a rise in your inflammation. So with that comes along autoimmunity-based skin conditions like psoriasis. If you have, you may probably seen a flare-up when you have stress, because that triggers that flare-up. So what about ibuprofen? Well, that's not probably a good thing to do. Research continues to experiment with anti-inflammatory drugs, and none have been approved for use of fighting chronic low-grade inflammation. Plus, ibuprofen has side effects such as stomach bleeding, and it also has shown to increase blood pressure. So there are better ways to address chronic inflammation. So what are some of these ways? Well, one of the best ways that we can do is lifestyle change. That's probably the number one thing that we can do, and the fastest way to change. And one of the things that you can control are washing your hands regularly, because that helps to decrease infection, bacteria, viruses, and whatnot. Plant-based foods, making sure that we're looking at a plant-based diet. Exercising, getting our sleep, and then stress relief are the big ones. Those are the main ones that we should be focusing on. And so once we start doing that, we're going to start seeing a change in our life, reversing some of these things that we're having problems with. So out of all of these, I would say sleep would be my first thing and first choice to make sure that you're getting that rest. Once you start resting good, guess what's going to happen? You're going to want to start eating better. You're going to want to be drinking more water. You're going to start feeling so well that you're going to start exercising too. So it's a good cycle to get into. So once you get that rest, the other things will more than likely be a part of your lifestyle. Food. So when we look at food, that plant-based diet, we want to eat a variety of colorful fruits and vegetables because they have antioxidants. And it will help with your cellular damage that is created by the inflammation. The big part of that is a high fiber food such as nuts, seeds, beans, and grains. Very important that we're getting this. We need to cut down or cut out those pro-inflammatory foods such as processed flours, sugar, foods that are high in fat, because once we cut those out, now our body's going to be cleaned up. It's going to be detoxed in a bit, and it's going to help to repair and to heal our body. In Genesis 1:29, it says, God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you it shall be for food." So God is telling us that we need to get back to the Eden diet. He wants us to be healthy and strong. If we just followed what he had said from the beginning, it says in Exodus that we would not, if we diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord our God, that we would not have any of these diseases upon us. But because we have taken the diet from Egypt, we see that we are exposed and we also suffer from those types of illnesses. So talking about fats, polyunsaturated fats, they have more than one multiple or double bond, and that's why they classify that as a polyunsaturated fat, and they have the greatest nutritional benefits. And so what are those fats? They're like avocados, seeds, nuts, olives, and olive oil. Those are the things that we're looking at. So how do we know if they're polyunsaturated? Well, they're susceptible to rancidity. They get rancid very easily. That means that the chemical conversion to unhealthy fats. So you want to make sure that you're eating it so it doesn't get rancid, right? More fresh is always better. Even eating the avocado is better than actually the avocado oil. But if you're going to have oil, avocado oil is good, or coconut oil, or olive oil. Those are the things that it would be better. But if you eat the olive, it's even better than the oil itself because oil is concentrated. However, when it comes down to fats or oils, those would be better than if it comes from an animal source. So essential fatty acids, well, there's two essential fatty acids, and it's omega-6 and omega-3. They're both polyunsaturated fats. They do have opposing psychologic functions, where omega-6 fats are pro-inflammatory, whereas the omega-3 fats are anti-inflammatory. So we need to know what those ratios are, because that's a huge key of knowing if we're eating too much of omega-6 fat, then we're going to have more problems with inflammation in our bodies. But if we concentrate on the omega-3 fats, they're going to help get rid of the inflammation inside of our system. So with that, we can see a cascade of inflammation if we get too much omega-6. And what we have seen in our American diet, our standard American diet, has been the ratio of 10-1, which would be better than a 25-1, meaning 25 omega-6 to 1 of omega-3, meaning that we're getting too much of the omega-6 and not enough of the omega-3. And that's why we need to focus on the omega-3 and therefore it will help with that balance of that chronic disease and helping your inflammation. So diets high in omega-6 fatty acids, what it does is it shifts the metabolism towards our arachidonic acid, and it subsequently metabolites that the prothrombotic and proagglutatory, which increase in your blood meaning that it increases the blood fat in your blood vessels, which will lead to other problems. And we call this a complement cascade. Now, what does that really mean? Well, they have discovered that inflammatory triggers, which is a group of proteins called the complete cascade, these proteins are not in your bone or your cartilage. And where they are, they're hidden deep inside the synovial fluid that surrounds those joints. And this, so what happens is that they complement your body's immune response. And that's where they stand by to jump or to fight wherever they need to go, whether it's an infection or an injury, they will go in and take care of that. So a little more about the complete cascade. There's 30 different types of proteins that make up this complete cascade. And all 30 of these proteins act like a domino, right? So if you set up those dominoes, right, if one falls, then it sets off a chain reaction where boom, 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 that each one of those keep going in that domino thing. So one protein called C3 is usually the first one that's going to set off this domino effect, and it sets off the next C protein, and it keeps on going. And they call this a MAC attack. Yes, eventually the last C protein in the cascade triggers a MAC attack. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you go and get a McDonald's to get something to eat, right? No, a MAC attack stands for, M stands for membrane, the A stands for attack, and the C is complex. So they call it a MAC attack because it works on your membrane. It attacks the membrane. It knocks out the invading microbes, and it's known as healthy inflammation. But those who suffer pain 10 times more, this process does not stop. It keeps on going over and over again. So it's misfiring, and it's creating more of a problem. So when this happens, it's a vicious cycle. And your joints, like your cartilage and your tissues, it makes them stiffer and weaker. So what is worse is the complement cascade goes haywire, and it triggers more inflammation, which damages the molecules like COX and 5-LOX and the C-reactive protein, which is CRP. It also has the TNF inhibitor, and it creates chemokines and other destructive enzymes. Research has showed that people with more inflammatory proteins in their blood experience 9 times more the pain. So it's very important to know that our diet plays a huge role, like with the omega-3 and the omega-6. So if we're eating a lot of junk food that's high in fat and sugar and stuff like that, that it will increase that inflammatory response in those proteins, and it will cause us more pain. So any inflammation that is constant, it needs to be addressed because it can cause so much damage that it changes your arteries, your heart, your skin, and other tissues and organs in your body. That's why it's so important to understand what's going on here. And it also damages the inside of your cells, like the lining of the arteries. It promotes cholesterol plaque. That means there's a buildup of that plaque in your arteries. It sets up for sudden and deadly blood clots. It can hinder your immune function. It allows abnormal cells to spread. It can weaken your bones and probably even in problems with breathing. It speeds up skin aging, and it can make it harder for you to lose weight. That's why it's so important to understand the factors of inflammation and how it reacts inside the body. Now, some people, they don't really care to exercise. You might be one of those people that not too interested in exercising. Well, let me tell you, research has shown that you don't have to be a marathoner to lower the inflammation. At the University of California in San Diego, they had a study that found that just 20 minutes of moderate exercise suppressed the inflammatory response. Exercise can also positively affect your gut health, just like we call that 15-minute digestive walk is so key. And not only that, but if you're exercising, especially people, they have found with another study that people that have like arthritis in their joint, like their knee or something, if they work their way up to walking 3 miles a day, they will notice that the pain will go away. At first, the pain is there, and as they continue to exercise and walk, that pain starts going away. And the reason why is because it has to do with blood flow. If we have perfect circulation, we'll have perfect health. And so that's such a key element here. Exercise also helps with your gut health. If you have arthritis, you need to exercise. That's one of the best things. Since cartilage, which is that pad between the bones, right? It doesn't have blood supply. And so it has to get its nutrients from the joint lining, which can only occur when the joints are used. So if we're not using the joint, that means that padding, that cartilage in between that joint will not get fed, and therefore you will have problems. So you don't like to exercise because it's unpleasant, it's uncomfortable. Well, so is heart surgery. And what would you prefer? Would you rather have heart surgery, or would you like to be a little uncomfortable for a moment in order to get that blood flow going? And as you continue to exercise, you're going to start feeling better over a period of time. If you get sore, it will improve. It'll improve those bad knees too. So I would say start out slow. Do 10 minutes every day. Try to do that digestive walk after your meals. It doesn't have to be anything fast. Just take a nice leisurely walk. I have a tendency to walk fast. The more I talk, the more I walk. Faster I walk, actually. Another thing is when you have sore muscles, that's just acute inflammation, and it will go away in a day or two. So if you really work out and you're exercising and you start getting sore, okay, don't do that big workout every day. Do it every other day. Do it 3 times a week, and do those other little walks in between. But I'm telling you, if you do those digestive walks, that is the number one key. Start doing that, because that now is going to help you to move. So what does a wholesome lifestyle change look like? Because most people think it's not easy because it's too simple, right? My first thing and suggestion is attacking one at a time, because inflammation is a lot easier than worrying about dozens of things to do. Make it easy by doing what? Picking one lifestyle area to change and improve on. Focus on sleep. That's my key thing, because I think most people don't get enough sleep. People need to think about how they can go to bed earlier so they can get that extra time in, because every hour before midnight is equivalent to 2 hours of rest. That's why if you go to bed at 9 and wake up at 5, you're feeling good. So you want to get both quantity and quality when it comes to that. And this will help you to do everything else better. I find that when people give their body time to rest and lower that stress, they have an easier time making smart food choices and getting exercise that next day. So it's just a good thing to look at. So what are some things that we can do when it comes to herbs? What kind of things can we use? Well, white willow bark is very good for pain. Licorice root, hawthorn berry. If you take 1 tablespoon of each one of those, put it in a quart of water, simmer it for 15 to 20 minutes. That'll make enough supply for one day. So if you do that over and over, you will notice that you will start feeling a difference in the pain as well. Another thing that I don't have on here is wild lettuce. If you can get some wild lettuce and brew that up and drink 1 to 3 cups every day, that will also help. Actually, it'll help pretty much like that. It's amazing. Wild lettuce is so amazing. If you have a joint issue, you can take cabbage, beat on that leaf, and then apply that as a poultice on that knee or that wherever it is that you're having that pain. Red pepper cayenne extract. How do you do that? what you do is you use 1 teaspoon of your cayenne pepper and you put that into 1 cup of rubbing alcohol. You can use even the green alcohol or the regular rubbing alcohol, which is white. You put that in together and you mix it up and you allow the cayenne to settle to the bottom. And then what you do is you use the top part. What you'll do is you'll apply it 6 times in one day for 6 days. So 6 days in a row, you're going to apply that on that sore area or that painful area 6 times in a day for 6 days. And then you're going to drop down to 2 times a day. And it'll be very effective in 2 weeks. And then you'll do that, use it for about 4 to 5 months. And that will alleviate a lot of the pain. That's a little slower way, but most people usually have rubbing alcohol at home and they have cayenne pepper. So that's one of the simple things. And I wanted to bring that about because most people have those things already at home. So you can start to do that. And over a period of time, you will start feeling better. So what are some other things that we can use for herbs and stuff when it comes to anti-inflammatories, meaning getting rid of that inflammation? Turmeric, however you want to say that, is very, very good when it comes to inflammation. Huge. You can put that in some water. I'm going to share a recipe right after this. So turmeric, ginger, boswellia. Boswellia is frankincense. Frankincense. Devil's claw, white willow bark, aloe vera, licorice, feverfew, slippery elm, rosemary, omega-3s, like your different nuts, and charcoal. All of these have an anti-inflammatory response when we use these on those areas that are painful. Harvard Medical School said that inflammation is a key player in a wide range of chronic diseases. And Johns Hopkins Medical School said that chronic inflammation in our middle age may be associated with an increased risk for brain shrinkage, meaning that, if we have chronic inflammation, it can be a key player when it comes to different types of diseases, even diseases of our brain. So other things that you can do, there's a thing called milk thistle seed. And let me tell you, this is amazing. When I found this out, I was like, man, this is so key. So when people would come into the office, because I have a practice at Country Life in Columbus, Georgia, and when I see people there and they have some pain issues, I tell them to get some of this milk thistle seed powder and to sprinkle a tablespoon on their food. Doesn't matter whether it's their sandwich, whether it's their soup or their salad. And I've seen so many good results with this. You can also get it in a pill form, like a capsule. And so this is what the research showed, that after 8 weeks, 98%, I didn't say 8%, I didn't say 50%, I said 98% after 8 weeks of the people, they were pain-free using milk thistle seeds. That's amazing. In 7 days, there was 54% improvement. But if you keep taking it for 2 months and then take it once every week, and then you will take it once monthly, this will help you to get rid of your pain. This is so amazing. I had a guy that came into Country Life, and I told him, I said, try this for 7 days, see if you get any improvement. If you get any improvement, come back, get enough for a couple months, and start taking it. And over that period of time, you will notice that you won't need anything more because it will help correct, it'll help get rid of that deficiency, and it will help you overall with your pain. We had a guy that came in, gave him that stuff. Within 3 days, he was walking normally because he couldn't walk at all. He was just kind of like crippled, right? And so he couldn't mow his lawn. He could hardly do anything. But once he started taking this, and within those 8 days, he was able to stand up straight. He had more energy. He could walk normally. He could mow his lawn. He was so energized. He could do so many things. He was so excited about it that one day he had come and got some, but someone stole his stash, and he got all upset about it because he did not ever want to go back to that crippled state. And so he had come in and he was able to get more. But I mean, these are just things that God has given us. It's so amazing. simple things that God has given us. But we also have to work with God with that. We can't always just depend on the herb. We have to change some things in our lifestyle, because whatever it was in our lifestyle got us to where we were with the pain and all of that. So we have to look at that as well. We've got to change some of these things. And in the meantime, we can use these other things to help us with it. So the results were far better than the ones taking the pain medicine when they were doing this research, which barely improved the patient's pain at all. So it's so important that the simple things that God has given us are key factors. So this is what you can also do at home. You can take 1 measurement of turmeric, like a tablespoon of turmeric with water, heat it up and stir it, add some ginger and some cinnamon, and put some almond milk. So it'd be 1 tablespoon of turmeric with 1 tablespoon of water. You heat that up, add the ginger, the cinnamon, and your almond milk, like a cup of almond milk. And then you'll take, and once that's heated up and mixed up, you can take, because that heating process helps to solidify all of that together to make a good concoction or a good mix with that healing process of the pain. So if you take 1 tablespoon 2 times a day, you can refrigerate it and then use it. So those a tablespoon 2 times a day. So you'll be getting 2 tablespoons of that every day, and that really helps with the pain as well. Other inflammatory foods and spices or supplements would be garlic, flaxseed, chia seed, again, turmeric. I can't talk enough about turmeric, black curum seed, and also black seed, right? Black seed. We sell that in a liquid format as well as pills. And I remember one lady coming into Country Life that had like a sore or pain. So I told her, I said, you really like that stuff, because she was buying a big bottle of it. And she goes, honey, I don't take it internally. I just take it and I just rub it on my spots that are painful. And I said, that really works. And she goes, oh yeah, it's really good. So I've been able to tell other people too, instead of internally, you can also put it on externally. That's the black seed oil. I don't have that on there. But apparently that is good as well. I would say I would do it internally as well as externally, but she puts it on externally and that helps. But here's the factor there. If she starts changing some of her lifestyle stuff that got her to the point where she has the inflammation and the soreness and the pain in her joint, she probably wouldn't have to take that black seed oil for a long period of time. So, I mean, all these things are so key. I'm winding down here. Hydrotherapy is another thing, using ice packs, cold compresses, or cold soaks, contrast showers, allergy sprays, revulsive hot and cold fomentation. All of these are really great things too. These are some things that we use at the Lifestyle Center. And so I'm going to stop there. So those are the things that we need to be looking at when it comes to pain, and looking at what we can do to actually help when we have this pain. So I'm open for if there's any questions or anything. Any comments that people might have. So if there's any questions about any pain or anything else that anybody would like for me to answer, I'd be more than happy to help you with that.
Dr. Julie, can you hear me? Okay, we had a question about the CA3 protein that you mentioned, and that is one of the first to go down or have a decline in that, and how do you improve that?
Yeah, great question. So basically what we want to do is our lifestyle, using some of the herbs that I had mentioned, as well as getting that rest is a key factor here. And using the foods that will help with the inflammatory situation. If we can start doing those two things, that will help with those proteins.
We have another question. We have another question for you, Dr. Julie.
Blue Dot.
Can you hear me? Okay, you mentioned prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic. I'm thinking the prebiotic is the fibers. For your probiotics, how many CFUs do you recommend to your customers or patients? And then what are your postbiotics?
Great question. So basically, probiotics and prebiotics are the main ones that people may have heard of. Some people haven't even heard about prebiotics. But the postbiotics is something new, and I think it all has to do with marketing. Everybody, they're always trying to find something new. And so when it comes to the prebiotics, feed the probiotics. So if we're eating those things like celery, cucumbers, greens, beans, all of those things are feeding the probiotics in our gut biome. And so that plays a big role on having that balance between the good and the bad biome, the gut biome, microbiome. And so that is so key. So when we're eating those foods that I had mentioned, that's how you feed it. That's how you make sure that you have good biome that can fight off or to keep that balance in the gut. So fiber is a big key there as well. If you don't eat very much fiber or haven't been eating very much fiber and you start putting a lot of fiber in your diet, you're going to notice that you're going to be going to the bathroom more. If you have diabetes or high blood sugar levels, you're going to notice that eating that fiber like beans and stuff like that, it's gonna help. Instead of spiking up, it's going to help go in a certain direction. So then that way it's more satiated. It's going to last for a long period of time. So then that way your blood sugar levels don't go up and spike down. But fiber from your beans, your nuts, your greens, these are key things, especially when it comes to like your fruits, like citrus fruits, your cucumbers, and even like sauerkraut every now and then, getting some of that to help with that balance. When it comes, I think the other question that you had was how much, was it probiotics should a person take? Well, if you're eating good yogurt, I would say like a plain yogurt or some of this yogurt that we can buy that's like a soy yogurt or whatever, that's fine too. Even aloe vera is good for the gut as well. You want to make sure that you have that balance. If you're taking too many antibiotics, it will get that flow off. And so it's very key that we are making sure that we get those foods to kind of help with that. I hope I answered the question that you had.
Now you can do it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, the CFUs and probiotics, how many CFUs do you recommend? And I know you mentioned that postbiotics are marketing, but you're not saying what that is.
Okay, hold up a second before.
Yes. So
Probiotics are living microorganisms promoted with claims that.
yeah. So whenever you're thinking of pre, pro, and post, I know that a post is so pre is before, post is right after. So when you're getting your prebiotics, it goes into a post probiotic, which is right before it feeds the biotics. And how much should you take? If you're having an issue with gut issues, I would say that you need to get at least 8 to 10 strands, and I would take at least 100 billion would be well. If you've had like a bunch of antibiotics, you're going to want to take more than what it says on the bottle. You're going to have to take the highest dose of, if it's more than 100 billion, if you can find one that's higher than 100 billion, then you would have to take that, and you'd need to take more than what's on the bottle. You have to take like 2 to 3 times more what's on the bottle in order to take care of that for a certain period of time, until the issue is gone, and then back down to what it says on the bottle. I mean, this is huge when it comes to your gut issue and that biome, the gut biome, the microbiomes. And there's so many people that have so many issues with their gut, and it's not just it probably spins off of what we eat, but I think the biggest thing is because people are worried or they have some kind of stress, and that causes problems with your gut.
I don't pretend to totally understand, even as a dietitian, to understand this. It's very new to me, this postbiotic. But like it says, it's the future of probiotics, really. And as you mentioned so very well, Dr. Julie, it's dealing with the whole gut microbiome. It says all health begins in the gut. Really, it's like the brain, in a way, of our digestive system there. And, you know, when you take care of that, this whole issue of the probiotics, and you mentioned, and I think you said that well, it's kind of marketing postbiotic. I'm not sure the reason for that terminology, but it is seemingly just very important to recognize that all of this deals with the gut health and just what we do to improve that. You know, whatever it's going to take, and you mentioned some of those foods and herbs that are very beneficial, not only yogurt, whether it be plant-based or a plain dairy type, and those who are vegan certainly don't want to go that route, but you do have other substances. You mentioned aloe vera and all of those that can be very beneficial in helping with the gut health. That would be crucial toward those pro and post biotics that I still don't totally understand.
Yeah, you have several questions online that
Okay.
people posting.
Okay, this is the first one. And then I'm gonna mute us before I can unmute her.
Chronic inflammation from fibromyalgia. Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically the question here is herbs that are mentioned to help reduce pain associated with chronic inflammation from fibromyalgia and or lupus. When it comes to that, can you hear me? Okay. When it comes to fibromyalgia and lupus, fibromyalgia can be treated with simple techniques. Like there's a certain type of massage that can be used for fibromyalgia. What's happening is the body is that things are misfiring. If you have a place where you can go to like a hot tub or soak in some warm water, or even swim in a warm bathtub or whatever, what that will do is it'll help calm down the fibromyalgia. And it will, if you do that, like say every day, whether it be 5 days a week or 5 days a week, that will help with the fibromyalgia, which is amazing all in its own, because I have sisters that have fibromyalgia as well as rheumatoid arthritis. And that's one of the things that I told my sister to do. And when she started doing that hot bath and moving around in that hot water or that warm water, it decreased the fibromyalgia. So that's one thing that you can do to help with that. Lupus is kind of in that category, somewhat similar. Herbs. Trying to think of herbs that people would use for fibromyalgia. I would say turmeric and boswellia. We have this. It's a capsule format that has both turmeric, but it's called curcumin, which is the element found in turmeric. That and it also has the boswellia, frankincense with it, and the combination together is really good for a lot of pain and swelling. I know we sell it at Country Life, but I think you can get it at any health food store, or you can always call Country Life and we can send it to you. And about the question of what the man was asking, when it comes to probiotic, it's actually your waste matter. So what comes out of your system, and foods for that, like I said earlier, would be like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, and yogurt. Another question is if common allergies such as hay fever can contribute to chronic inflammation, what natural actions can we take to manage it? Good question. So basically when it comes to allergies or hay fever and stuff like that, what's happening is usually it's around a certain time of year that this takes place. And so if we know that we have some kind of a food issue, right? So if you know that when you eat peanuts, for instance, that it flares up something. And especially when you eat peanuts during a certain time of year, it really flares up where you have like hay fever or whatever it is, some kind of an allergy, right? What I would suggest is if you stop eating the peanuts, you will be down here and you won't get the flare up. So if we know what kind of foods that we might have a tolerance with, that can actually help us when it comes to those certain types of seasons when we have those flare-ups of those allergies. I would suggest that some things that you could do for herbs, besides the food, figuring out which foods that you might have a tolerance to, would be using nettle tea, oregano, and olive leaf. You can either get them in capsule forms, or you can get the actual tea itself, and you can actually take about, I would say about at least 3 cups a day, if not 5, between 3 to 5 cups of those things. What do you recommend for high blood pressure? Well, first and foremost, exercise. If it comes to understanding maybe some herbs, we do have a mix at Country Life. And I know that one of the main things that we put in there is, let me think, hawthorn berries is one. Trying to think here. Can't remember what's all in that. I think it's cat's claw. And I know that garlic is another good one. But we have a mix that we use, that we do ourselves, where we put it all together, and it's been very effective for high blood pressure along with your diet. And I have found that people that have been taking it, I had one guy that came into Country Life. He took it for 2 weeks and he was able to get off all his blood pressure medication. Some people it take a little longer. It kind of just depends. But as you take the tea, I would suggest whoever your doctor is that puts you on the blood pressure medication is to let them know that you're going to be changing your diet and your lifestyle, and that you're going to be using some herbs and stuff. And as those numbers fluctuate, have them help you take you off that medicine.
And then we're going to have to cut it off soon. How many more questions do you have?
There's another question.
That was it so far.
For online, that's it.
Okay, we have an audience question.
It's above. I posted it. Can she hear us? She's talking. Is she, okay. So you mentioned like the effects of ibuprofen being harmful. What about naproxen? I kind of let go of the ibuprofen because of the GERD and the like esophageal ulcers. But what about naproxen? Taking that 3 times a day for, it says it's an anti-inflammatory. So does that have the same harmful effects?
Okay, but you go ahead and
Okay, so basically, your question is dealing with what again? GERD? I didn't quite get the question.
Okay, ask it again.
Asking about the naproxen, the use of naproxen for the for the inflammation, reducing the inflammation. Like 500 milligrams of naproxen, that's what the VA gives anyway, so that's all I got. But like, you know, taking that 3 times a day to reduce inflammation, is it even working? I mean, I'm obviously still suffering the pain, so is it even worth taking that level of naproxen, basically, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so basically what I would do is I'd get some wild lettuce, and I would take a cup of that instead of taking the medicine. And I think that it would help with the pain. But wild lettuce to me is one of those amazing herbs, and I would try that. If that doesn't work, try the one thing that I had in the discussion here on the turmeric and the cinnamon, and the something else was in there. Use those with the almond milk and stuff like that. And but first, I would try to drink 1 to 3 cups of wild lettuce per day and see if that would help. That would be my go-to. Because when you take in medicines, a lot of time what happens is you take it for one thing, and if it isn't quite doing the work of that, it sometimes get into the system and it starts doing other things to different organs. So what you want to do, if it's not really giving you the relief, try wild lettuce. I think that would be the key herb to use for your situation. Okay, so the question is, what's the name of the blood pressure mixture? It's called Take the Pressure Off. Take the Pressure Off. And I did look up on my thing here, the things that we use in there, in that mixture, is cat's claw, ginger, hawthorn berries, hibiscus, lemon balm, and some stevia. That's part of the mixture for the blood pressure. And its name is Take the Pressure Off. Yes. So the question is, can magnesium lower your blood pressure? Yes. What magnesium does is if you take too much of it, that can cause going to the bathroom, maybe a little diarrhea. Magnesium can help with your blood pressure. You can either take it internally, you can get the liquid and rub it on, or you can actually take like an Epsom salt bath as well, which in any of those forms will be helpful.
Okay, if you will unmute me.
It's already unmuted.
Okay. I just want to again thank you all for being here. Robert, stay close because I'm going to ask you to close with prayer for us. But want to thank you all for being here. I know that we have gone beyond the time that we planned on being here. But Dr. Julie, such a great presentation that generated so many questions. And we hope that many of your questions have been answered to your satisfaction, or at least it has triggered some thought processes that you want to go and dig a little deeper. And we can reach out to Dr. Julie, or you can do some research on your own, or begin to ask your medical provider some of these questions. I remember when we went to UG Pines, my sister here said that she didn't want to use a doctor again who did not believe in a holistic approach, and I'm using my words, to medicine. Because as the questions are asked about the naproxen, many times we find that these medications, as Dr. Julie said, do trigger other things in our bodies, and then we have more problems which are generated. I remember one doctor wanting me to take Advair, and because I refused to take it, I would have to take it for the rest of my life. He refused to see me as a patient. I had to see another doctor in his practice. But I was not going to live on Advair when I could take some medication like some Olbas oil. I could inhale some Olbas oil, something natural, and be relieved of the problem. And so we need to begin to consider naturopathic whole health physicians that are not just looking on big pharma. But I wanted to validate something that Dr. Julie said about things like hay fever. I know that when I tested for allergy, I tested to pecans, and I was told by my doctor that I could eat the nut. Strangely, the nut itself doesn't bother me as much, but if I eat the nut when the pecan tree is in bloom, then I would have a problem, more likely. So it's just understanding many of these things and being able to work with the body. Great presentation, Dr. Julie. Thank you so much. And when we're all opened up and you can travel down here from the Alabama-Georgia line and at UG Pines and what's the county? No, anyway, near Columbus, then we will have to have you come down and be with us in person. Thank you so very much, and thanks again, everyone, for being here. Dr. Julie, we would like to get your that recipe that you had for blood pressure, and I will share it in one of our weekly bulletins for the benefit of our.
Could they order that herb online or call it in?
Yes, you
Okay.
can call.
How would get that information? Do she?
What's the name of the Country Life store in Columbus, Georgia?
Okay, so y'all have that.
Yeah.
Oh, she's showing it.
Okay, there she is showing you. Yeah, but you can just.
Country life. Well, y'all got that information yourself anyway? Well, that, you can see.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we will find
We'll write
that
that
and
down.
make that available to you.
You see.
Thank you so very much. Thanks again for being here, everybody. You've been a great audience. And to our online audience, we want to thank you so much for your participation. And the questions you asked shows that you're out there, and we're glad that you joined us. God bless you all. We're going to have one of our elders to close for us.
Okay, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us to come here, Lord, to receive this information, Lord, on how to take care of our bodies, the bodies you've given us, Lord. So I pray that we would take this information and rightly use it for the betterment of our bodies, so that we will have the strength and the will to do your will here on this earth until your Son Jesus return. We thank you and we honor you and we praise you, Father God, for all things. In Christ's name we do pray. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thanks, Dr. Julie. I'll talk with you soon. Our next event will be in September, so be looking and listening for the information, and we hope that you will join us then. Thank you. God bless.